All right. So, hey, welcome back to another episode of the Supply Chaney Podcast. My name is Nathan Chaney, and I'm your guide on this tour today. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a step back, I think, in one of those three-letter acronyms that we all in supply chain have so much love and appreciation for, and that is EDI. We're going to dig into that today. Turns out that it's still very relevant and very much the backbone of how companies interchange information and data these days. There's another three-letter word that's been creeping into the conversation recently, and that's APIs. And I'll be interested to kind of get a little bit of insight on the difference with that with Jon, who is the Chief Product Officer and COO at Loren Data. He's got a long history with EDI, technology, supply chains, teaching. I think there's a little bit of geography, a little geology maybe in the background. So I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about you, Jon, and see where you've got your start and what you're up to these days. Jon, take a few minutes and share with folks a little bit about who you are and what you're all about.
Well, first, thanks for having me on, Nathan. I'm excited to
Sure.
have a good discussion. I mean, yeah, you pretty much nailed my background. It's non-traditional, or meandering is maybe a word to use. I started in education, geography and geology. I taught college, and GIS, Geographic Information Systems, is kind of where I first dug into tech, and I had some opportunity to work on some elections and get out the vote in the '90s, and I found technology was fun. And like all good graduates in a non-hard science geography, at some point I had to get employed. So I had the opportunity through a friend to start a software company. That I started at the help desk answering EDI questions. Now, I guess it's now 27 years ago, and had the opportunity to really work from the ground up. So most of my career has been in tech and software in some way or another. And most of it's been in supply chain, but I did take a brief stint doing some consulting and product management and workshopping and helping organizations build better products. And that gave me the opportunity to work around the world, and also moved to Costa Rica because all I had to be was near an airport. So quickly, my vacation home became my home. So, and then I joined Loren Data kind of after I took a little hiatus after COVID. I was pretty happy to, lots of people maybe didn't like COVID. I thought it was great. Sit around, do nothing, and hang out with your family. But then at some point, I had to go do some work, and folks at Loren Data, who I've been working with since 2016 in various and sundry capacities, I joined them, I think, officially in 2022.
Well, I would say you are not alone in your story of meandering supply chain related career and kind of backing into and falling into this industry in a way, as a career path. But let's back up maybe to the younger days of Jon, and where did you grow up, and what were your younger years like?
Well, I feel like I have to be a complete Michigander and say I grew up here in northern Michigan in a small town named Gaylord, Michigan. And it was great to, kind of have that small community, build strong relationships, many of which I'm still connected today, like in real life, not just like Facebook friends and followers on Insta or something. I think it gave me appreciation, almost like a generalist view of the world. You got to know a lot about a lot of things. You got to know how to bale hay. You got to find a way to sell cookies at the bake off. And you also have to participate in the community in an active way. And that started a lot of my kind of early stage political engagement is, be an active member in the community and be accountable.
When you
And I
say
took
hey,
that
you got to clarify: are we talking square bale or round bale?
square.
Square. Okay.
I'm 5'4", there's no way I'm moving those round things. And I don't know. I mean, I've met maybe two people that could kind of tip them. Um, and those wet bales of hay can be a bunch of work.
Yeah, I've spent plenty of time chunking square bales up onto trailers out in fields. So, I feel like that smaller country sort of upbringing gives you a little bit of a different perspective on life. And like you said, needing to be able to be very resourceful because you've got limited resources available to you, and you've got to be able to solve problems creatively, with what you've got in hand. When you were younger, what was family life like, and other than I guess playing in the hayfields?
Oh, I mean, golf was a big part of my growing up. I mean, I actively, played in high school, tried a little bit in college. It's a whole different step function of skill, just to be clear, regardless of kind of where you went to school. I think the family life was hanging out with mom, going to see grandma, and family road trips, and it's almost stereotypical in some ways, and it's sort of that nostalgia that a lot of people are looking for today, right? I think I was lucky to have, a little competitive environment. I'm a twin,
Okay.
so our whole life we kind of challenged and drove
Right.
each other to the next step. It wasn't a big family. I had two brothers. I had a lot of opportunities because a small town, you can be in the debate club, you could be in forensics, you could be on the golf team. I tried to get on the football team for like 6 whole days. You get
Oh,
hit
you were
once.
you were in a big enough town that had a football team. Okay, wow, you big city guy.
Yeah.
We
Well, we
didn't have
didn't have a
enough. Yeah,
Walmart. I
yeah.
mean, I didn't have a Walmart. I didn't have a Sears. We had to
Hmm.
drive hours for clothes shopping for school. And maybe
Yeah.
that's where I first, understood EDI was important because that shirt wouldn't be on the shelf if somebody didn't order it.
John, we have so much in common. Also, golf all through high school, and also in the debate team all through high school. So, wow, we it's funny we have a lot of parallels. But I'm curious. One of the questions I've been starting to ask all of my guests, because I think it starts to say something about who you turned out to be, is what was like your first real job? Do you remember?
Yeah, my first real job was looping bags at the golf course at the
Okay.
club we were at. And, it wasn't, we would occasionally walk the whole 18 as a true caddy. Most of it was cart. So we drive up to the car, grab the carts, clean the clubs off, take it to the first tee so they could get ready to go. And it always ended with, at least 6, 7 holes of golf before it got dark. So it was kind of nice.
Okay. All right. So if we take all of that, everything what you just said, what was your influence or what was your thought process when you were shipping off to college and picking something to study?
College kind of just seemed like a toll or a tax initially that you had to do. So I didn't do a lot of thinking. I got a scholarship to a fairly small school called Oakland University, and so I kind of say my college career was a little bit like the Three Little Pigs, or it was too hot, too big, too cold. I did U of M for a real small amount of time, and there were more people in one class than my whole high school, and I was like lost. So I spent a year at Oakland, and I'm like, this is a little too small. It's kind of feels like high school. So I thought I'd go up a little bit, and then that was just lost in the crowd. But I really liked Ann Arbor, and there's a school about 6 miles down the street called Eastern Michigan in Ypsilanti. And so I spent the better part of my early career there. That's actually where I got my first software job in EDI, was in Ann Arbor.
Gotcha. All right. You studied political science, it looks like, and did some other work in GIS. And so what was sort of your thought process when you were picking that to study?
Get a degree. And that's really, I'm not sure I had a whole lot of thought process beyond. I mean, it wasn't about get a job. I mean, I could have played nepotism in some way, or friends and family. I didn't have this overwhelming career arc expectation. And that might just be a point of privilege or luxury that I had in my life. A lot of freedom to explore, right? Explore what interests me. And, I didn't have a vision board, if you will, but I did have a passion and curiosity to learn. And when I studied politics, what you learn really early in your undergrad is that, different countries, different systems, different morphologies, if you know what I mean. The shape of the land can predict the success of a given region. Mountains have to, I mean, we talked about it before we kicked this off, mountains have windy roads, right?
Hmm.
So, logistics in that kind of mode is going to be significantly different than when you have a 6-lane highway and a mature warehousing situation.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens in politics. And then I just kind of got into, I think like all good college kids, at some point you read Marx, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. And then someone told me about how capitalism impacts development, and uneven allocation of capital can starve or flourish areas. That one discussion at a coffee house said, oh, maybe I should look at geography a little more.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not saying I'm a Marxist today. I mean, I'm an investor and doing just fine.
Mhm.
Go capitalism. But it's one of those things that kind of ran me down a path.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
learning.
So let's dig into kind of like the interview style thing. Walk through the resume and the different experiences that you've had in your career.
Well, kind of my first real job was teaching at university. I started at a community college. I mean, I did the teacher assistant at Eastern, which
Mm.
is not really teaching. It's basically doing the work the real professor doesn't want to do. But my first opportunity to teach was at community college. I must have looked really young because I was 24 and I showed up. It's 10 minutes before the class and I'm waiting and I'm sitting at the teacher's desk and this kid comes in and he's like, dude, you can't sit there. That's the professor's seat. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I kind of play along and then I take a seat in the first row and everyone's like, where's the professor? Where's the professor? Where's the lecturer? Where's the guy? And I let it go to about 2 minutes pass and then I grabbed my stuff and went up to the lectern and started teaching basic geography. And then I saw that guy when I was teaching at rocks, a kind of earth science course at Eastern. He showed up to Eastern University, Eastern Michigan University, a couple of years later, and just walked in and smiled and laughed. And in fact, we've had pretty good relationships since then, and we stay in touch.
Oh,
And
such a good
so
story.
then I went out and I had twin boys, and I'm like, wow, health insurance would be good because I was driving like 600 miles, teaching at three community colleges at one university, putting so many miles in that poor little Honda Civic that I owned at the time. So I decided to get a job in corporate America. A friend of mine got me a gig at this EDI company, then called Supply Tech, and then became a company called Innovis after a series of acquisitions. That's when I started tech. And I did basically just about everything but sales in this technology company. And it landed on product management and sales. I mean, maybe I'd like sales if it didn't have the cold calling where people just told you no. I mean, I get enough of that in real life. I don't really need that as part of my job. And then, well, I guess I didn't do finance either. I haven't figured out debits, credits, left, right, but Excel will figure that out for me. And I landed on product and I spent most of my career there. It's a passion. The diversity of activity and focus and the changing of focus that happens in product management is really kind of good for how I work. And so I really led product management for the majority of my career. I did a little mergers and acquisitions, and then I did consulting, and then I'm back in EDI and supply chain with Loren Data and DC Grid.
I think you might be 80 episodes into this, but I think you're about the first person that has brought up the concept of product management. Usually, project management comes up a lot, in the world of logistics and supply chain things, but not a lot of product management. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to us lay people?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to explain it to the CEO I work for now. Product management is the discipline, in the simplest term way, of understanding the market, listening, interview, look at analytics, look at their buying behaviors, how they consume and use your product, and taking that knowledge, translating it, and moving it over to the engineers so they got that empathy and understanding of the problems we should solve. And then once we take the knowledge for the market, then put together the right solution to solve that problem. Then we got to turn it into the business. And it's that business acumen of profitability, growth, iteration to find the right product market fit, to get to a point where you can lower costs to serve that revenue with automation, AI, APIs. So technology becomes a way to deploy solutions that the business needs around profitability, bottlenecks with labor and growth. And how can you do that by building the right product? And it's a real, I see it as kind of a hub and spoke role because it reaches out to sales, it reaches out to marketing, it reaches out to finance. And you become that expert on the people in the market that you want to solve problems from. And I joke a little bit, product management isn't hard. You listen to people, you tell stories, and you take people's money. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Now, there's a lot of risk in there. There's a lot of investment in there. I mean, I've wasted all kinds of development capacity and marketing dollars, but long as you learn, you know, that's the right thing. So I see product management as that discipline to turn. I'm a technology guy, but the thing you build into a business. And so it's all of those elements that you have to share knowledge, focus, and prioritize. Now, project management is often confused with that. uh, Project management, I think, as is like one of the most important partners for product because they keep you honest, right? They're like,
Okay.
they're red light greening you. They're,
Mhm.
are you on budget? they become that arbiter, objective voice of how you're actually doing, because product managers are increasingly optimistic and we kind of trick ourselves into thinking everything's great. And so a project manager will be like, whoa, not great. And so if you build a good relationship and trust with your project team, it's one of the most powerful duos you can have in a business.
Okay. And it seems like just looking here at your bio, you have instructed and taught product management. So you are somewhat of a subject matter expert, I suppose, in this area.
Yeah, man. I got that gig by blogging. I had like a top 5 product management blog on the planet. And
Okay.
I was doing a keynote at a at an application vendors user conference, and that did product management software. And after my speech, this guy came up to me and goes, "Hey, want to do this product management thing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, what is it?" And he's like, "It looks like this." I'm like, "Wow, that sounds too good to be true." I go, "Let me talk to 2 or 3 of your current employees," and then every single one of them told me the same exact story. It's like I was out. And it was super rewarding gig. I mean, I saw my career go from education, corporate America, back to education, and I used to laugh that was full circle. But the full circle now is going back to technology and operations. So we'll see how this flywheel keeps rolling.
In my grand design of what I think I want to do when I grow up, there's a little bit of teaching in there. We'll see. We'll see if I make the full journey there or not. Let's maybe fast forward a little bit now to kind of what keeps you occupied these days, and what Loren Data is all about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm busy. I mean, there's lots of exciting things going on. I mean, we're super high growth. I became involved originally with the company in early, I guess, like 2016, 2017 as an investor. I've been a board member. But when I came on board to be an operator, what we saw is some changing dynamics in the market. And that changing dynamic was use of APIs. And our founder and CTO, Todd, built this wonderful widget called EC Grid. And he built it with an architecture that was API first. And so every capability you consume in our software in the browser can be consumed at the command line, for lack of a better phrase. And we have nearly 300 public APIs, and they're super granular. They allow you to onboard new trading partners, add new trading partner IDs, set up protocols, mailboxes. And so what we're really doing at Loren Data is we're changing the discussion around EDI from being vans to being a platform that you integrate right into your business process. There's someone on the dock that needs to send an ASN from the warehouse, and then push the button in the warehouse management app and integrate it end to end, including visibility. And so we partner a lot with ISVs, independent software vendors, and solution integrators that really tie in our technology to the end users to create an experience for those end users that doesn't require IT intervention. Did the ASN go out? Did we get confirmation? I should do an IT support case. No, just look inside your app. You can see, did they receive it? You can see, did it go out? Did they respond? Was it accepted or rejected? And so, in many ways, in the supply chain experience, we're empowering the business to run itself with limited IT assistance. So it reduces time to resolution, it reduces IT loads, and accelerates the communication across all their trading partners, suppliers, buyers alike.
Before we get more in the weeds and technical on this, I've had a little bit of exposure and experience with EDIs and vans and whatnot, because I've built and run 3PL facilities and have done fulfillment and that were both e-commerce and to brick and mortar, to stores and retailers. So I've got enough experience in this to know the concepts, but not everybody does. A lot of people in logistics and supply chain that may be listening are not familiar with why EDI exists. What purpose does it have? Can you kind of like back up just a second and kind of lay the groundwork for EDI and what it's all about?
Yeah, I mean, so in some ways, I didn't really want to talk about EDI because EDI is a technology, right? That enables a business process. And you talked about 3PLs, right? You might do drop ship, or you might have a website that generates orders and you got to ship it direct to the consumer, or you've got relationships with retailers moving off the same warehouse or out of the same logistics organization. EDI is the tech. is the data that you exchange between those organizations. And I guess I read something on Reddit yesterday, and it always amazes me when I see this number. It's like a 70-year-old technology, and there's 70 years of refinement using standards. And so standards-based data format is why EDI still prevails and will continue to prevail. Lots of people are talking about web services, JSON. Sure, those are complementary activities to invest in. But you've got a production infrastructure with, as a retailer, 7,000 trading partners or vendors. You can't ask all of them to wake up tomorrow and deploy a point-to-point solution. And so, in many ways, EDI has become that backbone that is easily exchanged via normal protocols, FTP, AST, and there's some legacy stuff out there. Um, it offers an opportunity to deploy downstream, right? So if you have a standard way of integrating, you can take that same standard content, and it doesn't matter if you're going upstream to the buyer or downstream to your suppliers, that same capability has been honed and refined for that 70 years to be lightweight, to cover all the use cases of how you might partial ship, how you might invoice across that whole order to cash. And life cycle, and it covers all kinds of industries and not just supply chain. You've probably heard of HIPAA as a standard in healthcare. I mean, a part of it is, definitely don't share my health information, but the other part is automation and electronic records. How do you do verifications with that somebody's got insurance? How do you bill against the providers and the payers, and how's that whole relationship? That's done with EDI in most hospitals. Then you go down to the service change. I bought a product and I bought an air conditioner and I got to get it fixed. So you call your Train or whoever your air conditioner retailer is, and it's under warranty. So then they call a outsourced fix-it person that comes to your house. Sourcing and deploying those folks is often done through EDI too, those messages. So it's a proven technology with a whole bunch of legacy investment, and that legacy investment works. It's well understood by those that play in the space. And so the opportunity for new technology isn't necessarily data format. It's looking at how can I augment or extend what I'm currently doing with modern technologies? And that's where some of these legacy vans leave their customers kind of as an afterthought, because they're more about, let's just do it how you've always done it and keep paying us money. But the market and technology is moving too fast, and organizations want to extend their capabilities with less points of failure. And lots of the legacy EDI technology are just incremental points of failure. And so APIs reduce those and eliminate points of failure by going right to the application and the end user. So that's kind of the historical context, kind of a business context. Anything at Walmart, Amazon, it all came through EDI and old school. And so when Walmart said, how are we going to automate? They said EDI. When Bezos and Amazon said we're going to automate, they said EDI. Now there's some other things around JSON and web services, but they're outside of the order to cash and the traditional supply chain activities, like product and production management, PIM technologies, and the like.
All right. Okay. That was helpful. That was helpful. And bringing up, I'm very, very deep into supply chain. So whenever I think of any situations, I'm usually thinking about it in terms of products and manufacturing and trucks and trains and planes. But your example of hospitals, and healthcare records being passed. So yes, any amount of data and communications, that is really what I guess modern civilization is really just based on, is supported through this invisible web of information that's flowing all the time. Do you have any statistics or information that you can kind of share that just talks about, we talk about data centers today, and we see a lot of data centers. We didn't ever talk about data centers before, much before the age of, sort of AI right now. And it's a really big, because it requires a lot of data. What is like the data intensity, the requirements to power, I guess if you want to say, the 70-year-old data and communications technology?
Well, I mean, I'll look at it from our perspective versus, legacy. Since we're a software as a service, a platform, there's no hardware, so, we've got adapters to go into, ERP applications. So we're basically taking out whole swaths of IT infrastructure with how we're going to market with EC Grid. You don't need an EDI translator. You don't need an ETL solution. You can use it in flight on this platform. You don't need to install a B2B gateway for communications management. You can hardwire and manage that right from the application with an API, web service API. Um, and historically, implementing EDI was expensive. You'd have to go spend $100,000 to implement a translator, or you'd have to have a lot of manual activity using web forms, but which is like, going online to a portal and filling out an order manually. So a lot of that is going away through direct integration and automation, whole layers of technology and points of failure. So if you want to understand the scale of EDI, I mean, I've heard numbers that 90% of all commerce in North America starts with an EDI transaction, typically a purchase order.
That really kind of helps put it into place, I guess, mentally for people to wrap their head around.
Heard of it, and the people that have heard of it are like, this is horrible. I hate doing it, which makes my life wonderful because every time someone says I hate it, I need to understand what I got to build.
There you go. You got put that product manager hat on. What about the API side of things then? Like kind of give us a quick primer on that. And is that the new kid on the block and not as tried, true, and trusted? Or how does that compare?
Well, an API basically is a capability to go directly into some technology stack, like a software application. Even hardware, firmware have APIs. And so it's a way to translate what you want to do into the language of the end system, to keep it simple. It's a programmable it's an application programmable interface, to give a little context. So you program to the application requirements so you can interface with it. And I wouldn't say it's new. I would say it's become more functional with the cloud. And as technologies and web services have matured with REST and moving on from SOAP and some of those proven technologies in the space, that maturation of how to do it is really what's driving the momentum. Because lots of people did it, but it was all kinds of different ways, flat files, XML, JSON. But now that things have matured and there's common ways to do it with tool sets from vendors like Google. Google's got some API tools. There's lots of API management vendors out there now that simplify it. I think the time is now for application integration using APIs. It's not that it didn't exist, because we had APIs in the late 90s. It was one of the things I had to support on the help desk in my very first EDI translator that I worked with. But now it's just becoming, with the cloud and the pervasiveness of bandwidth and how cheap storage is, and how many organizations really are outsourcing some capabilities that aren't core to their business. It's now getting traction.
So kind of, could you grab your crystal ball here and just talk a little about what you see happening? Where is all this going? Maybe with the introduction of AI, but what does the future hold for data and transferring information?
Yeah, I mean, AI is a great thing. It's definitely a buzzword. It's really exciting. It's why data centers are taking up so much water and electricity these days, uh, to build the models and validate the next step. But AI, that as we've deployed it, we've done some AI integration for coding in our online translator, transformation engine. You don't need to know code. You can actually prompt yourself into a mapping scenario. We've deployed AI for managing our data centers and creating alerts and dashboards for anomaly detection. We put in place a recommendation engine for our catalog offering that says, if you buy products like this from suppliers like this, maybe you should look at people over here that sell similar products in the category. And so it does enrich the experience for the end user, right? A lot of the clicks go away, and in some ways, some of the expertise is no longer needed. So it's almost like a democratization of technology. If you can do a process flow and do a query, you can improve how you integrate your apps, and with our solutions, integrate your supply chain. And so connectivity, as we see it today and how it's going to change, I think it's going to continue to deploy new types of protocols. I think it's going to have new types of content that are exchanged. But I think what we'll see is there will always be a space to simplify the implementation. And what I'm meaning there is there's lots of upstarts. In fact, some of our largest customers right now are companies that were early stage companies, and they're like, we're going to do point to point web services until they get 300. And then those 300 web services have some SL cert that expires and they can no longer connect with their PKI authentication or whatever it is. I'm just, yeah, but this is how the tech guy explained it to me. So keep me honest here. Maybe you know better than I do. But this point to point proliferation that was predicted in the early aughts has never really come um, to reality because it's a whole lot of work. And when you look at 7,000 suppliers at a retailer, maybe you want to manage direct connections to five of them, your five most valuable. But the ones that don't have technology, professional IT teams, the ones that maybe aren't high value or strategic, you'll want to not have that operational support overhead. And that's where players like EC Grid and Loren Data come into play to simplify that operational overhead and the onboarding overhead through automation and APIs. Because onboarding is a lot of work.
I feel like you used the word hub and spoke earlier, possibly. And I just got this vision and concept of Southwest Airlines and in airlines that operate in a hub and spoke model, because operating a network of all point to point, whatever, is just, there's so much wasted effort and lack of efficiency in that kind of model, right?
I mean, I didn't use those words, but that's actually kind of one way to look at the complexity of it and how you might prioritize certain routes, for lack of a better phrase.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that the LA to New York route, maybe that does make sense to be a direct and not hub, because it's already a terrible enough flight as it is. All right, one or two more questions here for you. So one, I think at the backbone and a lot of what data enables us to do is have visibility in the supply chain and know what's going on upstream, downstream, side stream, everywhere. Whenever you kind of hear the word visibility, what does that mean to you?
God, there's so many buzzwords, right? And, visibility is one of them, right? Because I mean, here's what I know. I don't know who the VP of visibility is in an organization, but I do know he needs to know where's the truck, right? I do know who needs to know where's my stuff. Did it get delivered to the carrier to be delivered from my Amazon purchase, right? So when I think about visibility, it's about people that need the right information to make decisions and drive the next step of the business process. And so it's not visibility for visibility's sake, it's for answering questions and solving problems. And whether it's clearing customs, whether it's a truck that didn't show up at the dock on time. Those are important points that impact the customer experience. And so, since I'm a marketing guy and a product guy, it's the end user, right? So, when does that end user get impacted? That's where we have to understand the failures and have visibility in a proactive way so we can source a different route, so we can get a different carrier, so we can maybe get a whole different vendor. I mean, right now, there's a lot of change and churn in the marketplace right now around sourcing vendors because of the tariffs that are going on. How can I find alternative suppliers that reduce my tariff burden? And so, that's another example of how you might want to have visibility to different classes of vendors and different activities in your business process.
Right. I like it. One last one here. You've done a few things in your life. You've had some experiences, and you seem to be like a person who would think about philosophical things. So I'm kind of curious, do you have a quote or a book that you kind of point people to, that you refer to on those hard days or when you need a little bit of a spark of inspiration?
Well, I had a quote I lived my life by, but then I found out it was apocryphal, and now and not really sourced. But I tried to live it. I thought it was Thoreau who said it. Someone told me that in undergrad. It was life is an experience to experience, and you're going to be somewhere, and something is going to happen. Be present and figure out what that information informs you to do next, how you react, how you move forward, how you maybe just stop for a second and collect your moments. And then it kind of leads me to the next quote, which is real and is Frost. Two roads diverged in Yellowwood, and I took the one less traveled by. And every chance we get for innovation, every chance we get for doing something new, every chance there's a decision, try to be a trailblazer, not a follower. Now, that means you're going to get lost. It means you're going to make bad decisions. You're going to run into walls, go back. Yeah, I was wrong on that turn.
Right.
But that goes get back to my first, not real quote, apparently. Life is experience to experience, because every one of those walls you hit or a place to learn. I don't know if that's what you're looking for,
That
but
was exactly what I'm looking for. I love it. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing some of your story, your experience, your expertise with us today, Jon. Any last words on your side before we duck out?
no, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll keep watching the podcast because you got interesting folks. You got a variety of folks, so I'm just glad that I can be added to the cadre, and I look forward to helping out however I can.
Excellent. See you around, Jon.